Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Mayor of Kingstown. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're dealing with the aftermath of the dead FBI agent and the missing one, and so it's like, okay, so one of the FBI agents that's kind of in the middle of this investigation, she was like, yeah, well, he's a senior agent, so I don't see it likely that he did this, but it's like, well, it's going to be a joint investigation, but the FBI takes the lead on the case. It's like, because once again, it's like, what's this conversation? Are we dealing with a missing missing persons thing, or are we dealing with a person of interest? And like, I guess like the chief or whatever, it's kind of like missing person of interest. And the FBI agent's like, all right, she's like, I can live with that. So that ends up being that conversation. So all the while that's going down, Mike has to decide what he's going to do. And he ends up talking to Bunny, and Bunny's like, dude, the shit you're mixed up in, it's already on the streets. He's like, have you ever done anything with Milo? He's like, no, like, basically saying like the Crips don't like do business with the crackers. He's like, especially like, I think it was like saying like the Slavics, like that's a whole other lane of crazy. So it's like, I'm not touching that. You know, we know not to touch that. But he's like, whatever you need, you're gonna like, I'm here whenever you need it. But Mike's like, your situation, I'm gonna have to like fix my own problems first. He's like, that's fine, but know that, you know, there's always gonna be a problem, and like, even if you don't pay attention to it though, it is eventually just gonna get bigger and bigger. And we do see that situation escalates over the course of the episode, but we'll circle back to that a little bit later on. So now Mike's in a situation where he ends up going to visit Milo, and finally they have their face-to-face, and it's just like, for Mike, he's like, I don't understand. You've been so locked up in here for so long. You've lost all perspective. For one, doing what you're done, like, this is the craziest thing. Getting some FBI agents killed, doing all this, once again, for what? What is so important that you go to such extreme lengths? This ain't about just getting, like, the locals' attention. You also are drawing in the FBI, too. It's like, but why? And the thing he wants now is, like, right, he's like, don't even worry about Iris. Iris doesn't even exist to you anymore. She's back to doing what she was doing before she met you. It's like, you had your chance. You could have just slept with her. You could have just accepted the gift that I was hanging out. But what did you do? You smacked my hand. I had to hurt her. I had to break her. And now you don't even get the girl in the end. So she's kind of off on her own. Don't even worry about it. So he's like, but now I know how I can get to you. Next time Milo wants something, he's going to bring someone into the picture. And it's like, cool. You might want to accept that gift, my extended hand, because if you don't, the next angel's going to get broken too. So he knows how to get to Mike anytime he needs something from Mike going forward. So, like, he's put Mike in a very compromised position now, because, like, at least before he'd be like, nothing you can do can get to me. But he knew, like, Iris would be the one. It turns out, he even said, like, oh, it turns out she is just your type. But he wants Mike to dig something up. It's like, he's like, oh, it's something metal. It's like, the bastard's super cryptic. But he's even saying, like, no, bring the FBI agents with you. He was like, if you don't, it's going to look bad for you. But if they're with you when you find it, you'll be the savior. And I'm like, what is that? Why is that? Because even Kyle and him are talking later on. It's like, whatever it is that Milo wants you to do, it's going to blow up in our faces. Like, and even then, like, Mike's like, I get that feeling too, but he's like, I don't get how and why. Like, this has to because this has to connect to that 200,000 that they dug up before. So, like, what is it? Is this all connected, or is this because he couldn't get the 200,000? I wonder. It feels like it's all for the purpose of, I'm just going to get you in my back pocket. But it seems like even bigger than just getting Mike under your thumb. I don't know. Like, would he have pulled this stuff with Mitch? It's the question. Is it just because it's Mike that he's doing? I mean, to be fair, he went to Mitch and, Mitch and in turn Mike to dig up that 200,000. So I don't know. And so Mike just accepts it. And so he's trying to avoid the FBI while he goes and eventually digs up in the field. And he found something. It was something metal that he claimed on him. Was like, is that like a giant metal box? And at first I was like, you don't think it's like a doorway to like an underground bunker or something like that? I have no idea what to expect from that. It's like, okay, I guess, like, the big question, what's in the box? If it is a box. If not, like I said, like the door to, like, an underground bunker or something. But it sounded like he made it sound like it was just going to be, like, a metal box. But, like, is it going to be, like, a whole bunch of stolen gold? That's why he was saying that, like, oh, you're going to retrieve something and you'll be heralded as this hero by, like, the feds and stuff. That's why I'm like, I'm not sure. Because the feds already have their own preoccupied situation because they got their FBI agent, the one, well, Hastings or whatever, he's the one that worked with Milo, and it's like, right, you're just going to rough me up a little bit, and it's like, cool, and Joseph ended up popping him. He's like, the way he was like, oh, don't worry, we're not going to hurt your brain. I was like, because I was on pins and needles the entire time. I was like, all right, because when it comes to that, because those usually are very unexpected situations, like, because I've watched too much stuff where, like, the shot comes from too fast, it's just, the gun's out, pop, you going, like, there's no hesitation, like, there's no, or the shot comes from off screen or something, I don't know, so I'm always on, but it's like, no, there was some time, because they put it to his chest, then pulled the trigger, but, yeah, poor bastard, because even Mike says, like, yeah, he doesn't, too bad he didn't know Milo as well as I do, because it's like, right, because it's like, maybe he wasn't a dirty cop if he's dead, but it's like, Mike's like, no, if he wasn't dirty, if he wasn't working with Milo, why not kill him at the office with the other two agents? Like, why go through all this trouble of kidnapping him and then just to kill him like this? It's like, no, he was in on it. So, poor bastard. Kind of thought he was probably either he owed Milo or Milo paid him, which is like, probably would have been smart never to get, you know, but I mean, too late now. It's kind of like, yeah, you kind of, karma came back to bite you when he asked for killing your fellow agent. So, there's that avenue of things. So, there's all of that. Then another angle is the situation with Iris. It turns out she's not doing her typical job of sleeping with senators. Now she's owned by Pete. And then it seems like basically Pete and his people ran a train on her, like a gangbang. And it's just like, oh, well, it wasn't even a train, it was like a gangbang. And you're just like, oh, like she's their property. It's like, no, she belongs to you. It's like, right, this whole point was to be a lesson to her, like, right, if you had just done what you were supposed to at the beginning, none of this would have ever happened. You know, Joseph's also enjoying it to some extent, too, because it's like, right, I got the crap beat out of me for it. The thing is, when she woke up, like, earlier, you do see, like, her arm is bruised. Now, I don't know if that was still other stuff from Joseph, or whether it's just from things got rough that night, and she was just walking through the house and just all those people around. You're just like, you feel so bad for her, dude. And then she sees the door and the guy offers her like a breakfast, and she's like, no. And he's like, oh, I'm smoking. She's like, I don't smoke. He's like, no, I'll make it better. And he's like, oh, let's go take a shower together. And you're just like, oh god. Because that's the thing too for Mike. It's like Iris is going, he's like, I could turn over every rock and never find her. Like, I think Milo probably gave her to Pete in particular because it's like, right, Pete doesn't know, like, Iris and Mike's connection. Maybe he does, and he's just doing this regardless. But there's also the, like, I don't know, because I don't think Mike's going to be too happy if he finds out about, like, Pete. And if he ever finds out, it's like, how would he? You know, and it's sad because I think it's leading down the route. Because I think in that moment, like, Iris is, like, probably replaying over and over again what Mike said, because she even said it last episode of how she was like, right, you told me I last a year, I didn't even make it like 6 months or something, like I didn't even make it like a month. And he was like, no, this isn't even it, like when the time comes to break, you will know. And I think she's in that moment now, and now she's realizing, like, and that's just like, it's just like, god damn it, dude. You're just like, that sucks. Because it's like, you were hoping, I mean, there's still leeway and way out of this, but man, that's still, she's going to be a lot more messed up after all of this. I don't know, man. Is there going to be any way for Mike to even know about? I mean, he interacts with Pete. That's why I'm like, I don't know if Milo knows that or not. You would think Milo would know it, but I guess if he does any moves towards Iris, Milo will come back and kill her anyway. Or it's just like, nah, Pete's not going to give her up. So it's going to put Mike at odds with Pete. And it's like, whereas they've been just kind of a mutual thing, like, that can make that situation turn sideways. He might even get Bunny's help trying to get to Iris. I don't know. Like, I don't know how Iris' story is going to play out. It continues to be more and more tragic with every episode. And I don't know, man. This is going to be one of those depressing shows. It's like, I get the feeling like, man, it's just one of the, it's just this seems like that type of show of just, it's a cruel reality of this town and just humanity in general. It seems like it's going to be one of those almost examinations of that, the human condition, especially like the human condition in the prison system, like what it breeds and what it creates. But also, like I said, on top of it, like even just leaning into the fact is, I'm like, oh yeah, the cops are a gang. I mean, I think that speaks volume when you have gangs recognizing cops as gangs, as a gang in themselves, because obviously when it came time to let's circle back to the prison situation. There's a whole bunch of prisoners that they went on strike. They're not eating or anything. And at first, the fact that they have their backs turned, I was like, is that about Bunny's guy that got shot in the back? But it's like, no, there were white dudes doing it too. It's like, oh, no. Everybody's in on this, like, hunger strike. Now the conversation is how they handle it. Ed's all about, nah, we got to hit back. We got to turn up the heat. Lights on 24/7, blah, blah, blah. But the warden running things is kind of like, nah, I don't agree with that. We need to handle this differently. He's like, we need to have negotiations with the leaders of the gang. Where Ed is like, no, we don't do it. And it's like, right. I understand now why Ed didn't want to do it, because their dirt will get brought to the surface. So each one of the gang leaders is brought out. In particular, the guy that's Bunny's cousin. That guy's been locked up the entire time, and so he finally gets free. And I love that it's Ed that's the one that had to like come and get him. He's like, right. Ed's like, you don't say anything, because if you do, you're gonna fucking die in the shower. I swear to fucking God. And he's like, okay. And then they get there, and he runs his mouth, because I love that he was like, he talks to Ed afterwards, and he's like, oh, I told you. I wasn't actually going to say anything until you said something, which is, I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe he was like, all right, I'm going to keep it moving, like, it is what it is, but you threatening me like that? Nah, son, I'm going to put you in your place. I'm going to let you know you're my bitch, you know? And he's like, oh, we're going to kill you in the shower. He's like, oh, you better get to me before I stick a shiv in your skull or something. I'm like, yeah, Ed's probably going to get it hard. That prison situation is going to turn buck wild, because, like, you know, even that guy's like, right, he's talking to the other leaders. Them doing what they did, to be fair, it's like, right, we're going to have our issues. We're going to shake. At the very least, when we shake on something, I know there's an agreement. There's a mutual understanding. Because it's like, yeah, the moment their situation is what it is, I'm going to take my opportunity to take things back. But at the end of the day, we were promised something, and now you guys are backing down. And he's like, what were you promised? It's like, oh, a little more here, a little better food here. That's all we were asking for, but you guys backed out of it. It's yeah, because we did what you wanted us to. And it's like, what was that? Because he's completely in the dark about this. That actor who's kind of like the higher up below the warden, that dude, I don't know that actor's name. I've seen him in so much stuff. He was Pike in the 100. Like, he's been in so many things. You've seen that actor in so much stuff. I just can never remember his name. There was something more recent he was in. I just can't remember what it was, though. But tangents aside, he basically brought up like, oh, we took out your fucking trash for you, so. And now, Home Dude was asked by the warden to basically invest. So, like I said, I don't think he's in the know, because they also hid like about the nephew and stuff, like a lot of that was hidden, and he was manipulated in the situation as well. So he's in the dark about it. So he's actually going to legitimately be investigating all this to find out what's going on. So their situation, because he's like, right, your gang is what he was referring to, because it's once again. In that prisons, the guards are the fifth gang there. And it's like, right. And it's like, he doesn't trust them, you know? It's like, once again, like him and the other leaders, they have a mutual thing of like, yeah, we have our like tit for tat type of like situation, but your boys play by a whole different set of rules that I can't trust them, you know? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this goes now that things are kind of out there in the public eye, and just like Ed's going to try and shut that stuff down. But to be fair, what did Mike say? He'd say, like, you should have never made the promise in the first place. This is all on you. You made the promises. You never should have. You gave them the leeway, and now you wanted to take it back. Well, now it's about to blow up in your face. It's like, once again, like Bunny was saying, that situation's getting bigger and bigger, and oh, baby, it just bust, you know? So, I mean, hell, this might not even be busting yet. We might have to wait to really see the situation burst into full flames, like full-blown Armageddon. I'm sure it's coming when it comes to that prison, but we'll see. The other side of things, speaking of prisons, is what's the nephew's name again? I'm blanking on it. The nephew's got moved to the women's prison, which he's immediately like, oh, he's like enjoying it because it's like, yeah, he's getting all this attention from the ladies at the prison. And then like Mike's mom had to basically slap him back to reality, being like, get your shit together, kid. The fact of the matter is, this prison is just like the male prison. They will use you and manipulate you just like all the things you had to worry about in a male prison are here. They just come in a different shape and form. And it's like, yeah, like, you know, so... And one of the ladies in particular took an interest in him. And the other guards warned him about how things work at that prison, saying like, all right, watch your back because they will manipulate situations where it's like, right, they'll strip in front of you and show you their situation just so they can later on call you out for sexual harassment and just like, almost like say like, oh, you forced them to do that. And... because there's enough guards, slimy and like guards in that situation of being having relationships with inmates, which he was like, whoa, there's people already doing it. There's guys doing it. It's like, oh, not just guys. There are assholes of every gender. So it's like there are men and women getting manipulated into that, and it's like, right. It's all for the purposes of they get a little more leeway, like being able to get out into the walk the yard or something like that for like 7 hours of fresh air and somehow have $1,000 in commissary money. So it's like, right, you want to save yourself the trouble? He's like, be a fucking, one of the dudes is like, be a robot. And he didn't listen. He kept getting too much attention for that one in particular. She's like, oh, I'll see you tonight. She bumped over and touched his car. It's like, even the other guy was like, get your head out your ass. And you're like, dude, I get it. You're young, and you're just like, once again, it's like you're young and stupid is what you are. So yeah, the moment that happens, she is straight up naked, showing him everything. I was hoping he put his thinking cap on and be like, okay, knock it off and walk away. But no, what did he do? He just stood there and he stared, and he's getting filmed. I'm like, oh, you idiot! You had multiple warnings not to do that, and you did it anyway, you idiot. So now I'm thinking like it's going to blow back at him and he's going to get in some legal trouble, but it's probably also going to get him kicked out of the female prison and sent back to work at the male prison where he's going to die, which might be the whole point anyway. It's like, oh, you thought you could get away? Now we're going to bring your ass back here so we can kill you. I don't know if that's supposed to be why, like, because they did say like, oh, you're young and you're just their type, so you're the type of person they could mess with because you are fresh meat. So it could just be, oh, you're the new guy, but it could run a little deeper of like, now we're trying to manipulate it so that you go back. We want to put you in a position where we can get you. Because there was a whole conversation about trying to get the guards in the street, but it's like they're probably not going to try and get him in the street. They're probably just going to get him, well, either going to get him fired so he doesn't have the protection of those walls for most of the day, and when he's out and about, that's when they'll get him, because they haven't forgotten about him shooting their boy. Like, Mike was able to kind of pull that back a little bit, but it's just like, once again, that kid just keeps making his situation worse and worse and worse, and it's going to get him killed, and that's going to lead to like some flames igniting in all of this too. Like, once again, the entirety of Kingstown is a powder keg ready to explode, and there's just so many damn fuses being lit here and there, just going to trailing with their own trail of gunpowder that's just going to make everything boom, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.